You have heard the question 1,000 times. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? It sounds like a joke, a simple riddle for children. But it is not a joke. It is a profound biological paradox. For centuries, philosophers used it to prove the universe had no beginning. Aristotle thought both had existed forever. Plutarch called it a heavy and weighty problem. Stephen Hawking thought the egg came first. Today, we finally have the exact scientific answer, and the truth is stranger than the riddle. To understand it, we must rewind the clock. We must go back long before the first farm, long before the first human, and long before the first bird. Are you ready to solve the oldest riddle in history? We have to define our terms. What exactly is an egg? For billions of years, life existed only in the water. Ancient oceans were filled with microscopic creatures. Eventually, those creatures grew complex. They became fish, and those fish laid eggs. But those ancient eggs were soft. They were basically just jelly. They survived only in the water. If a fish laid a jelly egg on land, it would dry out. It would die in minutes. This was a massive problem for evolution. The land was totally empty. It was full of plants and oxygen, but no animals. For millions of years, animals were trapped in the sea. They were prisoners of their own soft eggs. Then, a miracle happened. About 312 million years ago, something mutated. A small, lizard-like creature crawled out of a swamp. This creature was called Hylonomus lieli. It was the size of a rat. It looked like a modern salamander, but it did something no animal had ever done before. It laid an egg with a hard outer shell. This was the amniotic egg. It was a self-contained life support system. It had a tough, leathery exterior. It trapped moisture inside. It let oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. This was a revolution. The amniotic egg allowed animals to leave the water permanently. It conquered the continents, and it changed the trajectory of life on Earth. So, in the grand timeline of biology, the egg came first. The egg predates the chicken by over 300 million years. There were fish eggs, there were amphibian eggs, there were dinosaur eggs. All of them existed long before anything resembling a bird. The Tyrannosaurus rex laid eggs. The Stegosaurus laid eggs. Every dinosaur you have ever seen in a museum hatched from an egg. But this is where the riddle gets tricky. The riddle does not ask about a generic egg. The riddle asks about the chicken egg. So we have to move forward in time. We have to look at how a dinosaur became a chicken. 66 million years ago, an asteroid hit the Earth. It wiped out the giant dinosaurs, but some small feathered dinosaurs survived. Over millions of years, these survivors evolved. Their arms became wings, their snouts became beaks, they became birds. And about 10,000 years ago, in the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, a specific bird emerged. It was called Gallus gallus, the red junglefowl. This bird was wild, aggressive, and fast. It lived in the bamboo forests. It is the direct genetic ancestor of every modern chicken on Earth. Humans eventually caught the red junglefowl. We tamed it, we bred it, we carried it across the globe. But when did the red junglefowl officially become a chicken? Evolution is not a sudden jump. It is a slow, invisible gradient. It is like watching a boy become a man. There is no single day where it happens. But genetically speaking, there had to be a tipping point. There was a specific moment in history when two birds mated. These two birds were not quite chickens. They were proto-chickens. They combined their DNA. They created a single, fertilized cell. And that cell mutated. It crossed the genetic threshold. That single cell contained the DNA of the very first true chicken. That cell multiplied. It grew inside a shell, and eventually a fully formed chicken hatched out. Does this mean the egg came first? After all, the first true chicken hatched from an egg. That egg was laid by a bird that was not a chicken. Therefore, the egg existed before the chicken. For a long time, this was the accepted scientific answer. The egg won. The debate was over. But biology is never that simple. In the year 2010, scientists at Sheffield University and Warwick University made a startling discovery. They were studying how eggshells actually form. An eggshell is a miracle of engineering. It is incredibly strong, yet thin enough for a chick to break. It requires a massive amount of calcium. But calcium alone is not enough. It requires a catalyst. The researchers, led by Dr. Colin Freeman, found a specific protein. It is called ovoclidin 17, or OC17 for short. This protein acts as a biological builder. It takes calcium carbonate from the chicken's blood. It crystallizes the calcium into a hard shell. It works incredibly fast. It builds the eggshell overnight. Without OC17, the shell cannot form. The egg would just be soft jelly. But here is the mind-blowing part. The researchers tracked the source of OC17. Where does this vital protein come from? It turns out, OC17 is produced in only one place in the entire universe. It is produced inside the ovaries of a pregnant chicken. You cannot have a chicken eggshell without OC17, and you cannot have OC17 without a chicken. The protein is literally the chicken's genetic signature. Therefore, a true chicken egg can only be created by a true chicken. So, let us go back to that ancient jungle. The two proto-chickens mate. They create the first true chicken embryo, but the mother laying the egg is a proto-chicken. She does not have the exact chicken DNA. Therefore, she cannot produce OC17. The egg she lays might contain a chicken, but the shell itself is a proto-chicken shell. The first true chicken hatched from an egg, yes, but it was not a chicken egg. The first true chicken grew up. It mated. And when that first true chicken laid an egg, she used OC17 to build the shell. That was the first true chicken egg in history, which means definitively and scientifically, the chicken came first. The chicken had to exist to produce the protein that makes the chicken egg possible. It is a biological closed loop. The riddle has finally been solved. The chicken came first. But think about what this really means. The entire debate was just a trick of language. We confused the vessel with the life inside it. Every time you look at a chicken, you are looking at a living fossil. You are looking at 300 million years of survival. You are looking at the legacy of the swamp, the legacy of the dinosaurs, and the invisible microscopic architecture of OC17. We spend so much time asking which came first, we miss the actual miracle, the fact that either of them exist at all. So the next time you crack an egg into a pan, stop for a second. You are not just looking at breakfast, you are looking at an unbroken chain of life stretching back to the beginning of time, and your own hands are just the newest link.